When looking at online competence, a couple of things just to keep in mind is the medium, the efficiency of the communication. Are the posts are public, posts are permanent, and drafts. So the first thing I would say is choose the medium that's going to be appropriate for whatever it is that you're working on. Texting is great for reminders. I know sometimes I'll get into longer conversation, and I know I'm a little different from you guys because I'm a slightly different generation than most of my students. But for me, I'll actually use complete sentences with punctuation and full words. I know a lot of times when you guys are texting, things are a little bit more quick. So you'll find when you get a text from me, it's written in complete sentences, and I get stuff back, and I'm like, what? But and I've had to try to figure out what some of that stuff means. But think about texting more as a brief communication. When I get into the longer texting things with people, that gets a little bit more complicated. And I actually use the verbal component on the texting. So I will speak my text and it will type it up for me, and I'm able just to kind of function from there. So for me, sometimes my text might be a little bit longer, but they really aren't really meant for long conversations. I don't know about you guys, but I start to get a little bit frustrated if it keeps going back and forth because it's distracting to me. I would rather just take a second and contact with that person on the phone or whatever, just to make sure I'm able to follow through with it. If it's a little bit more complex, you might start off by emailing a person too. That's able to give you a little bit more information. You're able to include a little bit more detail than you are with a text. But again, if it gets complex, you think it's going to take a little bit longer, it's a good idea just to switch to the phone, just so that you have the right medium for taking care of the issue the most in the best way possible. I think another element that goes along with this is the idea of efficiency. So you think that you're going to just pop over a message, but then it ends up being, again, a long conversation. And, when we look at arguments, probably not the best way of handling it because it's not simple and quick. It's not for things that are emotional. I've heard people get broken up with over a text or broken up with over email. And, that's not the right place. Really, that's something that you do with somebody in person. I think people are trying to avoid conflicts, but sometimes what they'll do is they'll just meet them in a public place. I've heard this one. I'm just going to meet them in a public place, and they're less likely to make a fuss. Well, just know that you might find yourself being embarrassed if you're in a public place. It is just something that's going to happen occasionally in communication, but really, it's online stuff is not for emotional stuff. It's really, that should be something that should be handled in person. Posts are public. They can be forwarded to somebody else. Anything can potentially be seen. Think about this. A lot of times when employers are going to go look and find out who you are, they're just going to your social media now. They'll go to your LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is more of a professional one, so they might look at that. And you kind of can put your whole resume up there on LinkedIn. But they're also going to look at your Facebook and your Twitter and all the other things. And if they have pictures of you being drunk with your friends at a party, know that that's what's representing you. So that's maybe, if you're going to go out there and look for jobs, or you're going to go more into a professional context, then you may want to make some decisions about what's going to be seen on your Facebook page, or maybe create some things that are going to be more private that some people need to know more about you in order to see. So just as a thought, just as a thought. Posts are permanent, so the data hangs around forever. It's in somebody's server someplace, and know that Facebook has permission to sell your stuff. So the textbook mentions in here that as long as Facebook takes your identifying information away, they can sell your information. And they said there was a student that was going through and they found a photo and a gift frame that was that was the family photo. That would be a little disconcerting. The whole world is going to have that on their desk as the picture behind their picture. So just know, when you guys are putting stuff out there, it's out there. So things to think about because we're talking about online competence, think about creating drafts of things. If you have something that's kind of an emotionally charged piece, maybe save it, an email as a draft, and hang out with it for a little bit. And then maybe when you cool down, go back and reread it. A lot of times when I send emails to students, I will, or just to people in general, I'll say what I need to say, and then I'll go back and soften it. So I might say what I need to say, and then I'll put a sentence, a paragraph before that, and I'll kind of recognize the situation. Because you kind of need to think about how your information is going to come across. If I'm just going to say what I need to say, it's not recognizing a person's emotions and feelings. So I kind of need to do that as a human communicator. I need to figure out where the other person's coming from. So those are elements I need to stop and take into consideration before I move forward. So think about that as you're going through in your communication. Think about, if you have the opportunity to create a draft, think about it before you send it. That's all I'm saying. Because sometimes you might be a little bit too straightforward, and taking some time and sitting on it and going back and rereading it can be a good thing, especially if there's an emotional charge to it. All right, there you go. That's online competence.